I was in prison last week and a guy we have an app machine, and he sent an app and he said, "Drew, can you come and see me?" So I went to see him and he said, "Look, I know you've not been well. Last October I nearly died with COVID. And I went back to work on Monday this week for the first time, full time, since October." And he said, "I know you struggle," he said, "but my mum's struggling at the moment and I don't know anyone else I can talk to." And he's an atheist, he's been honest, card-carrying, raving atheist. And every time I've saw him, I've gone, "How are you doing?" He's gone, "You can go away." What other words are applicable? Fill in the gap as you wish. And he said, "But everyone's been praying for you while you've been up." And I was like, I felt covered in prayer, thank you. And he said, "But you're the only one I know that will understand how I feel at the minute. Will you talk to me?" So I sat with him and I listened to how frightened he was and how scared he was and how he just didn't know what to do. So I said to him, "I know how you feel, how scared it is, because last October I thought I was going to die. And there's nothing worse than feeling that this is it. Because I had encephalitis. I couldn't speak. I couldn't see out the right side in my right eye, and I lost the right side of my body. And the only way they can communicate is by lifting my right thumb on the phone at the time. And then they ended up, when that didn't work, they had to use facial recognition on the phone till they could communicate with my wife on to tell her what they were doing for me, to me, and with me. So I share parts of my story with the guys in prison because that's the only way that I know how to do it. And I share lots of other stories about what's happened in the 14 years I've been journeying with broken people in prison. And I share stories of life, stories that I've shared. And that's how you love your neighbour. That's how I found, personally, how we love our neighbour. By being vulnerable to a point. Because we have to protect ourselves as well. But Jesus was vulnerable. They stripped him, stuck a little cloth on him and stuck him on a tree. Now if he can be that vulnerable for us, surely we can be vulnerable to other people to share our testimonies, our stories. And there are some people when you go, "How are you doing? Would you like something? Can I do something?" And they're like, "Nope, don't want to know." And they're quite short with us. And we go, bit prickly. I get it every day. "You're the God Squad. Hate you lot." I'm like, "Yeah, God loves you, that's alright." Because a lot of the time, the people that we speak to have been hurt by the church, let down by the church. The church is supposed to be a place for healing. And how many people can you put your hand up and say, "I know somebody the church has let down and hurt," and they never come back because they're so hurt from 40 years ago or 20 years ago because somebody sat in the seat? I am terrible for that. I do. I am the biggest villain for that. I go to churches, especially my wife's a vicar as well, and I'll go, she'll say, "Don't sit in the back row of such and such a pew." What do I do? And I see them shuffling in, and I can hear them mumbling as they get in the door. And I'm like, "Not your church, this is God's house. Unless you bought it. It's a seat." I know what I used to do, and I still do in prison. Everybody sits at the back. Have you noticed when you go into chapel, everyone sits at the back first? Yeah. You do. Like, I'm sitting right all the way back here so no one can see me. Because when I'm sat all the way back here, the vicar can't see me and God doesn't know I'm here. So what I've done in the past is I've picked up my lectern and I've walked to the back and said, "Right, turn your seats round." Got yeah, and they're like, "Oh." So then it encourages people with to get to the front. Because we've got to take an interest in each other. We've got to take an interest in where we're broken. If nothing else that COVID has proved is that we are a broken society, that we're just on the edge of missing out, one where people are hurting the most. And you guys do some fabulous stuff. I've seen your uniform bank and I've seen all the other amazing things that you do. But you've got to have the courage to step out and be interested in the stranger. For people to go, what is that about you? Yeah, in all the chaos that goes on, you always seem to be smiling. Why? And you can go, do you know what? Because I've got God here. And you go, weirdo. And you go, I know. I know, because if you cut me in half, it says Jesus freak all the way through. And I'm like, what? You go, because I've tried it. And I do it in prison. I haven't tried the drugs because I've never done that, but I've tried the drink, I've tried the sex, I've tried the rock and roll, I've tried the fast cars, I've tried all the designer labels, I've tried all the other stuff, and none of it fit. Because it was still empty. And then one day, some weird bloke with a funny shirt on, with tattoos said, God loves you. And I said, you can go away. Or words to that effect. And he went, that's great, because he still loves you. Because he's interested in you. Not about your stuff. Not about your fancy house, or your flash car, or your really important job. Because he's interested in you. Because Jesus told us only to do two things in the whole of his teaching. Love God with all your heart, your mind, your soul and your strength, and to love each other as you love yourself. That's all he told us to do. We're going to be pedantic, he then said, go out and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of God. But forget that bit for now. Because they're the two, and then he said, and hang all the law of the old prophets on these two commandments. Because all the other stuff is insignificant. Because if I loved you, not in a I want to get in your pants kind of way, but I actually love you as a person and I want to make sure you're okay and you've got enough and you're looked after and everything's okay, I wouldn't have to worry about nicking off you and killing you and raping you and doing all the other daft stupid stuff, would I? Because that's the commandment we're told. Because if I loved you genuinely deeply with the agape love that God has given me, all the other rules and laws and all the other stuff doesn't matter. And only when the 18-inch drop goes from your head to your heart do you get it. And then people go, that's why you're different. Because you're not in it for anything out for you, are you? No, I don't want anything back. Because that's the society we live in, aren't we? Could you do us a favour? Why, what do you want? Nothing. Easter time this year, I sent an email up to the top brass. I want to order 950 cream eggs. What do you want to do that for? Well, there's 950 Christians, Roman Catholics, Anglicans, and I don't know how many other non-religious people. I want to give them a cream egg at Easter time. Why? Well, I just want to, so that's what I want to do. Okay. So I had boxes and boxes of Easter eggs. It was brilliant. And I went round with a bag on my side. And every time I come to someone, regardless of what faith they were, the Muslims hated it because it was in the middle of Ramadan. They hated it. They absolutely were like, this guy's like Ramadan. And soon afterwards, they hated it. But I was walking around and I was going, hey, what? You dropped this on the floor, what? Cream I haven't had one now for years. Well, there you go. No. What? Why? What have I done? Nothing. What do you want? Nothing. Why? What? God loves you, and it's a gift from me to you. Well, what do you want? Nothing. And not half of them couldn't understand I was giving them something for nothing. Like, but the number of conversations I've had since I've been back after Easter, it's been brilliant. You gave me a cream head, didn't you? Yeah, that's right. Why did you do that? She just said no. Because that 10 minutes, that person is the most important person in the world, because God showed me that's an easy way to do it. You're doing a great job. Kids kicking off in the supermarket. Oh, thank you. Oh. Daft stuff. If you go to Asda, some Asdas don't, or some Tesco's don't have pound coin things, in the trolleys. If they do, if you can afford it, leave your pound in the trolley. I've done that loads of times. Not, every now and again, just leave your pound in the trolley. The number of people like me, you go, oh, and then you've got to carry a basket and half the stuff down. You get to the till and you chuck it on. Little stupid things that people go, oh, look at that someone has left. Little daft things really make a difference in people's lives. But also, people are not going to like everyone. I get that. People are going to be prickly against other people. We've got to understand what our gifts are as well. And it's okay to say, I've tried with that person, I can't try anymore. And that's alright. Because what we do then is we do what Jesus said. Mustard seed stuff, we sow the seeds and then we take a step away. And we let God do the rest. And God will provide the people. The harvest is plentiful, but the labourers are few. Because we can't do it all on our own. Throughout today, you'll notice on the table there's a big blue heart with a handprint in it. I'd like you, if you would like to, would you like to, draw around your hand with a marker pen and then paint it in. And the heart is God's love. Because that's what we're doing. And the handprint represents us doing it together. Because we can't do it without His love and all together. And by the end of it, I'd like to be able to, if you can, it's entirely up to you guys, to fill it without any gaps. Because if there's a gap, it doesn't quite work. But just leave a tiny gap. Because that's where the Spirit needs to come in. Because we need to sit, we need to think, we need to pray and ask God for guidance and the courage to step out and say, what do you want me to do now? And sometimes He says, nothing. My favourite prayer, Lord, put your arm around my shoulders and your hand over my mouth. Because sometimes I'm as excited as what comes out of my mouth as everyone else. I'm like, whoa, where did that come from? But sometimes you've just got to sit there and do nothing. Because Jesus went away to pray and did nothing. The disciples were all like, what are we going to do next? You wait here while I go over there and pray. Because he's thinking, he's going to do nothing. He's just kind of go over there. But he's praying. And that's what we can do. And sometimes we just have to sit and listen. Because that's loving our neighbour as well, is discerning what is it that God's calling me to do next. How do I step out? How do I go? How do you do it? What is it I can do for you today? How can I? If you'll put your hand on your chest here, you'll do that. What can you feel? Your heart. There's a rhythm inside every one of us, isn't it? Unless you're dead. What is it? Oh man. Hang on. Oh, got it, yeah. There's a rhythm inside every single one of us. And it's the same rhythm that God started the universe with, the Creator, when He breathed into Adam, humankind. I like the first song we said, there's a song inside of me. There's a song inside my soul. Now sometimes our songs are off rhythm. Musicians will get this bit. If you're not a musician, pick up an instrument and try and learn how to play tunes. But sometimes you'll be playing a piece of music and you'll hit a wrong note. And you'll be like, woo! But good musicians will carry on. and it doesn't matter. And that's what life is like. You'll be going along with your melody, your song inside you, and everything will be going with the world. And we'll be in flux and we'll be in sync together. And every now and again we'll hit a bum note. And the idea is not to stop and not to get upset. But we're human, and we do. And we think, hang on, God's left me. I'm struggling, I'm in a dark place, I don't know what to do. And our melody becomes just slightly off. Well, that's okay. Because eventually our melody will come back into sync with our pattern of what God wants us to do. And that's how we allow our neighbour to love us. How we then, like ourselves, for us to then love our neighbour. Because it's not always about what we can do for other people. I'm a bloke, and blokes are awful at allowing people to help them, aren't we? We're stubborn, we're stupid, we hate going to doctors. I'm alright. Nothing wrong with me. I'll be alright. I'm not dying. Next thing you know, you wake up 12 days later with a tube sticking out and you think, where the hell is that living? Yeah. It's allowing people to love us as well. Because it's just not about love God, because we can always love God. We can wrestle with Him. Biblically, we're allowed to wrestle with Him, because Abraham did, didn't he? Just don't ask Him to put your hip out, because that's awful. We don't want to do that. We don't want to do any of that nonsense. Yeah. But that's okay. You can wrestle with God. God is big enough to argue with, to shout with, and by judge. Believe me, I've done a lot of that last year. And most of you probably stood there and screamed and shouted at Him, saying, why? And sometimes the question you'll never get an answer to. It's a learning of what comes next. And the why sometimes is because I want you to sit still while I put my hand around your shoulders and my hand over your mouth, and you shut up for a minute and let somebody look after you and somebody love you. Because that's what we're all called to do, to love our neighbours as ourselves. And we forget that as well. So it's not just about going out and doing. We're human beings, aren't we? Not human doings. So we have to be before we can do. So when we've done doing for a bit, we've got to stop and be. And that's what God wants us to do. And it's difficult because we think we need to be doing stuff all the time. And if you're in service ministry, regardless, when you do children's church, flowers, PA, music, leading, we've all got to stop. We're all disciples. We're all priests. We're all called to proclaim the gospel wherever we go. St. Francis of Assisi said, preach the gospel wherever you go, and sometimes if you have to, use words. I love that. Sometimes you have to use words, because it's about our actions that make us different. Any questions? Because I like questions. Oh, I've gathered a slurp of my Irish coffee. I made it myself. I didn't, It's a Guinness. Is it Guinness? No, it's Irish coffee. Jameson did. Got a drag on. Any questions? Please. Anything.
You said earlier about preaching and you're all going to go to hell if you don't find your faith. So we have a gentleman who street preaches, and I've got full of admiration for him, but he's very hellfire and damnation.
Yeah.
There are people who are intimidated by that, and he actually points at people and says, "You'll go to hell." I get his sentiment. I don't like his method. How do you get that across to him? Because
have you got a Costa coffee and bleak?
Yes.
Take him in for a coffee and talk to him.
What if he goes? Everyone knows what I'm talking about.
Ask him.
But the people are now beginning, non-believers are now beginning to look for ways to stop him doing what he's doing.
Yeah. Go and have a coffee with him, find out talking about his theology, what is his theology, what is his reasonings behind it, why, and ask him the questions, why do you think this is an appropriate way to spread the good news? Is that good news? If you're talking about that God that loves you wants to spend eternity with you, is that the best way to promote the good news of the gospel? That's the courage. Is not to shy away from it, is just to challenge it head on, but do it in a loving, brotherly, sisterly, Christian way. What is it? Can we go for a coffee? I've heard your message. Can we go for a coffee and talk about it? Because he's probably never been asked, he's probably had people ridicule him and throw stuff at him and shout at him and stuff. But actually the deep down is, what are you trying to say? Because actually, go into the Bible, where does it say you're going to burn in hell if you don't? Believe. Believe what? Are you talking about a God that loves me? Because if a God that loves you, he doesn't want me to be tormented in hell for the rest of my life, does he?
I don't know if I've got the guts to do that.
But I'm sure, yeah. But that's about the encouragement. That's about you trying to be vulnerable with yourself and saying, I'm strong enough, or I have a passion enough to love my neighbour. He's our neighbour. These are the tricky, thorny people that we as brothers and sisters, we have to hold each other to account in a loving way. You may not change. You're probably never going to change his mind, but at least you will have a better understanding of what his message is. And then at least if other people say, you're that nutter in the street, because that's what most people call him, you're that nutter in the street, and you say, actually, I understand him. I don't agree with him, but I understand X, Y, Z. And then the more you say, I don't agree with something, but I understand it, you will change other people's perception. And then sometimes what happens is people will grow with your understanding of faith, because that's religion, as far as I'm concerned. Religion is damaging. Faith doesn't. Faith is loving.
Why do you do what you do?
Why do I do what I do? Well, I'll use the easy one. God called me, but that's a lame excuse, isn't it? I was a naughty boy when I was younger. I got into all kinds of trouble, and my first grandma was a Catholic, my second grandma was a Church of England lady, and as you can imagine, they never got on. I know, funny that, isn't it? And but when I was a bit silly as I was younger, when I was in my mid-teens, and they both of them prayed for me when I was going through a really dark time. I had no idea about it, and the Catholic Church really damaged me through things that had happened. And I turned my back on God completely. It's like similar kind of attitude as the Catholic priesthood. If you don't come to confession, you can't do this. If you don't do that, you're going to do this. If you don't, it was all rules, rituals and rules, rituals and rules. And I kind of was like, well, I'm not into that. I'd rather go watch the footy on a Saturday, thanks. I went to Anfield and went to my religion, which was football. And it was only as I got older, I always had a faith or a belief that there was something, but I didn't know what it was. And I remember one day I did the Alpha course, and that really flicked a switch in my head. And it was a guy similar age as me who said to me, you will do other things greater than what you've done, but you will do it with people that are really broken. And I laughed. So I don't understand what you mean. And he said, but that's what God's told me, and that's what will happen. And I remember I used to be a commercial floorer. I used to go around churches and warehouses and shops and stuff all over the world, doing flooring and stuff. And I was in Germany, and it was the Sunday, I flew out on the Sunday of Remembrance Sunday when we did it. So I've done the remembrance service in the morning, and then I caught a late flight in the evening. And we got into Germany, and I still have my poppy pin on my suit jacket. And the taxi driver looked at me, and he kind of was, and he said, "What's this?" So I explained what it was, and he said, "That's unusual. We don't kind of have that open symbol as something here. We understand the wreaths and stuff, but we don't pin ourselves." And then we had this conversation of faith. And that night, I went out on the town, as you do, because it's new and all buzzy. And I ended up spending more time sat outside talking to drunken youths. And I just felt completely at peace and at home with them. And ever since that day, I knew God said to me, "You're going to look after the least, the lost and the broken of my society." And that's where I've been for 14 years. I did a placement, part of my curacy, in parish ministry, but I was like a fish out of water. I can do parish ministry and I love it, but actually I feel happier and safer inside prison with category B murderers and stuff, because they're raw, they're desperate, and they need someone to just not judge them, because there's a bloke who's had a funny wig on and a black cape who's judged them anyway. And that's why I do what I do. Because I can talk open and honest with them in a way that you can't in normal society, which is sometimes a challenge. And don't be afraid, because you never say no. You get equipped to talk to people, and that's it. But it takes that first step. It'll take the first, "Come on, mate, I don't understand what you're saying, let's go to Costa and have a drink." It'll take that first communication, and you'll find, probably like skydiving, I'll never do it, but whenever you do the first skydiving, if you're afraid of flying, doing your first flight in an aeroplane, you'll think, "Oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was." And all of a sudden you get the confidence to do more, and to do more, and God equips you to do more and more weird and wonderful things with more and more weird and wonderful people. Because they're humans. They may have made massive mistakes and done some horrendous things, but that's secondary, because it's a broken human in front of you first. Right. It's like tumbleweed. It's like a cowboy film on Saturday.
Have you got any stories of people from prison who have kind of encountered God?
Yes, I've actually got, we've got one guy, we had two guys, but one of them's been shipped out, sadly. They're going through confirmation with me to be confirmed at the end of the year. And he's serving 99 years. Yeah, I know, it's kind of like, what? But it's fine, because he's like, "Do you know what? That's my life, that's what we're going to do." But actually, that was through a conversation I had with him one day, because he came into the chapel in the COVID stuff, and we used to, at the time, we used to have an iPad that was given to us by Majesty Prisons, and it was for what they call purple visits, where they could have FaceTime with families, because they couldn't have visits themselves. And we have so many rooms in the visit centre, and then the chapel was another room that we could get Wi-Fi. So this guy was having awful problems because the signal kept dropping, and this guy's like 6'8", 6'9", 20 odd stone, big guy, tattoos everywhere. And little me, I was sat doing some paperwork in one of the other rooms, and this big guy was getting really cross because everything was disappearing and then he wanted to go off. So I just went and made him a cup of tea, a cup of coffee. Now, we're normally supposed to give them plastic cups. And I'm like, "You're in God's house. You come to my gaff, you're going to get a proper cup." So I made him a real cup of coffee in a real mug. I took it in and I went, "Here, Sam," that's not his name, "Sam, here's a mug of coffee for you. I don't know if you have sugar, but I think you're sweet enough. Here's a biscuit." And that was the conversation. And he looked at me, he looked at the cup and he went, "What, really?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm not." I said, "You're in my house. You have a cup. You're not having plastic." And he said, "Do you know who I am?" I said, "I don't care who you are, but you're the bloke, you're a guest in God's house, you're in my house, you're having coffee, end of story, sit down, shut up." And I'm looking at him like that, and he's like, "Here he is." I said, "Shut up, my name's Drew, I'll see you later." That was that was how my introduction to him. Because that's how I can talk to people. So I'm like, shut up, you're in my house, ever so. As the months go on, I go onto the wing and you go like, hey, come here. So I'm like, me? He goes, yeah, you come here. So I went over. So we said, why did you give me that cup of coffee? I said, because one, I could see you getting really miffed. Didn't say that. About stuff going down. And two, you were in my house and you come to my house and I got a cup of coffee. He said, well, I haven't had a drink out of a China cup for the last 15 years. I said, well, blow me. So come back tomorrow and you can have another one. He's like, yeah, so come tomorrow. So ever since then, every Tuesday afternoon he comes to the chapel and has a cup of coffee with me. In a real cup, real coffee, because I don't drink anything but real coffee. And it changed his attitude because he thought, I'm big, I'm scary, I'm doing a lie, I'm never going to get out. I know everyone's frightened of me. And I was like, well, so why was it different? Because I looked at him as a person who was struggling with one piece of technology that had out of his hands. And God nudged me. So we then start talking about, well, why are you doing this? I said, well, because God loves you. I've heard all this before. With that. I said, hey, shut your face. And he's like, what? I said, shut your face. So I'm not having all of this, mamby-pamby stuff off you. I said, God loves you. That means I love you. Whether you like yourself or not, but you've got work to do with me and we're going to sort this all out. And that's how I can talk to people. Like, point blank, no airs and graces, because you can't knit fog. It's got to be black and white. There's no grey in prison. You cannot knit fog. You've got to be black and white for people. So I was telling him this. And then he said, right, okay. Over weeks, I said to him, you ever been baptised? No. Do you want to get baptised? Why? So I just feel like I need to baptise you. What does it entail? So we had a conversation of being baptised. I don't want to do it in front of everybody, so I need 2 witnesses at least. So we got 2 of his mates who were also doing a long stretch. So there was 3 of us in the chapel baptised this guy, and now he was to be confirmed. Because God's working through him. So when we go on the wings, we sit and we openly talk about God. I'll take my own Bible with me and he'll come out and he'll say, I was reading that thing you were telling me the other day, because we get stuff from Prison Fellowship, and he'll say, right, I'm struggling on such and such. And we'll sit openly. And other lads through the wing know that Big Sam, it's not his name, know that he's part of the God Squad, because that's what he calls him. Who's the God Squad? And I'm like, hey guys. And that's how people, it's just a relationship. But I don't see what they're in for. I don't care what you're in for. I'm not interested whatever. Because you're a broken person and God wants to fix you. And who am I to say no? And I hang out with the Muslim lads. I hang out with everybody. And we've had a couple of Muslim lads going, well, in our scripture, Jesus isn't. I said, well, he might not be for you, but he is for me. Do you want me to talk about it? And then we have conversations. I don't convert people. That's what people, you're going to convert me. I said, I don't. That's his job. I don't convert people. God's Spirit converts people. He touches their heart, he touches their mind, and I just sow the seeds. Because you just be yourself. Don't try to be something you're not. Be yourself. If you're good at humour, use humour. If you're not good at humour, don't try and be funny because it'll shoot you in the foot. It is. I've got a couple of our other chaplains are so serious it looks like they've got a rod stuck up the back. They are. And it's like, really? How do you tie your shoes? They think I'm a heretic because I don't wear black shirts all the time and walk around in black all the way. But it's about relationship. So be yourself. That's how you can love others as yourself. And when you need to stop, don't get offended by that. Don't take offence what people are telling you. Let me love you for a bit. I know you're hurting. I can see it. I know you're knackered. I know you need some space. And oh, can I pray with you? Praying in Aston at the vegetable aisle is brilliant. It freaks people out. With or without a collar. Honestly, it's amazing. Don't be afraid to say to people, because that's the scariest one. Can I pray for you? That's a good one. Don't say pray with, can I pray for you? And most of the time people go, yeah, and you go, do you mind if I just put my hand on your shoulder? And they're like, oh, what's going to happen? And I go, can I put my hand on your head? That's going to really freak you out. And they're like, oh. And I'm like, no. But it's just be yourself. Because that's what Jesus said. You know? He called all weird and wonderful people, women, fishermen and tax collectors and prostitutes and ladies, the first evangelists of the world, the greatest ones. And we, you know, the church has been good to kind of keep you wonderful beings down, lift you up. Do it. Any other questions? Because I have questions. But we'll get the kids back in a minute, but I want one more song I want you to listen to. Because actually when God created humans, he created out of nothing. There's 2 creation stories in Genesis, and everyone's like, no, it isn't. It's like, yes, it is. We'll read it. You're like, oh, what? Freak my brain out. And it gets all confusing. But he created us out of nothing, breathed into us and got this rhythm going, our syncopated rhythm. I like that word. Write it down and use it later on when it goes quiet and snug. Okay? And our rhythm will be off. And our rhythm will slow, and it'll slow down, and we'll be ill sometimes. And we'll have people that are ill. And we'll have problems with ourselves and problems with other people, and that's when our rhythm starts to just go out of sync with what's going on in the world. But it will come back. I was lying in the hospital bed and there was a guy opposite me and he died opposite me in a horrendous death of COVID. And I had flashbacks of all horrendous nightmares of this guy dying in front of me. And I was on the COVID ward and he kept coming in like something out of a horror film with all the white gear on and over me, and I was like, ooh, freaking out because I couldn't speak. And it was horrendous. And I remember my wife saying to me, it's okay. They're here to help you. And it was only a friendly face that made me settle down. And there was only one thing I could remember doing in my head, and that was saying the Lord's Prayer over and over and over again. I could not think of anything else. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That kept going over and over and over my head. I could not say all the liturgy and all the stuff I've studied and all the thousands of prayers I've said with people and people have said for me and in congregations and stuff. The one thing Jesus taught us to pray was the one thing I could remember. I'm like, what are you saying? How do I? And the last blood test I had done was by a Muslim lady. And she came, Muslim doctor, and she came in and I offered her peace and she went, you know I'm a Muslim? And I said, yes, peace be with you. I said it. And she was taken aback. And I said, I'm a priest. And she went, I said, don't tell anyone else because they'll all start behaving properly. She said, they do, don't they? Yes, they do. And they do. Somebody told them, and then all the effing and jacking stopped in the road. Why are you behaving now? I'm leaving right now. You all start behaving, trying to mind your P's and Q's. Oh, you didn't know you were a priest. Oh, I didn't know you were a vicar. Oh my goodness me, if we'd have known that, we wouldn't have been doing it. I said, look, you've been giving me a bed bath for a week and a half. You know what I mean? There's nothing else you're going to make me embarrassed about, so stop it. But it's that stuff. It doesn't. You love each other, you respect each other, you stop. Because love your neighbour as yourself. We're our neighbours. And it's your job to look after me, as it is for my job to look after you. And you've got to stop sometimes and say, are you alright? to leadership, to your mates. And when they go, yeah, I'm fine, I'm okay, as they're going off to do something else, you go, whoa, slow down there, Charlie. Are you all right? Because I know it's been a bit of a frantic season. Can we just stop for a minute? Can we just pray together? What can we do? How can we do this?
You said earlier you had a time of being scared of dying.
Yeah.
Now, I think that's very honest to share with us. And I think there's, for all of us, there's a sort of evangelical that thinks we should be delighted to be skipping off,
Yeah.
or the bit of us that sort of hope we're at peace with going. To the extent you were thinking anything in that, was there a guilt of it, or was there a restlessness that you didn't think you'd finished?
Part of it is because I know I've not finished what I've been called to do. Part of it is because I know my wife, it would have devastated her, because we've not long lost my father-in-law, and I haven't seen the impact it had on her losing her dad, and she's the only one. And part of it is because I genuinely don't want to die yet. I want to die because I want to go and party in heaven with Jesus, because I want to look him in the face and say, giraffes, what the?
Stop your
What is this? What use is, really deep theological questions? Gnats, wasps, why? We're not all brilliant backhanders at getting a wasp out of the kitchen. But part of it is I didn't want to leave my family. That was a big part. Part of it is because I know I haven't finished what he's called me to do here. And secondly, I've seen too many people die. I've had the privilege and stuff. But a lot of the people I've journeyed with have always been older people. And you kind of go, I can see they've done a great job. And I'm kind of like, I'm only 51, come on. Don't be off with you. We're going to fall out, thank you, you think Abraham was a handful? Dodgy head or not. Yeah, but there is that weird, because there is that kind of oxymoron with the whole thing, because yes, you want to die, you also live forever and ever. That was my leg falling. There is that kind of, because you want to, there's that, I want to celebrate, and I know I'll be pain free and stuff, but actually the devastation of my family at this moment in time, I know would be really hard for them. I know they get over it, but I know at this moment in time it will be difficult. So it's hard to explain. But I also didn't want to die in hospital on my own either. Surrounded by people in hazmat stuff and being a million miles away. So we're created out of every ordinary stuff. God creates beautiful things and makes them into extraordinary things. And you might not think that you're extraordinary. You might think, well, I'm just me. But God sees something in you, has planted something in you, is working in you and through you to do extraordinary things. My challenge is, have you got the courage to be vulnerable, to step out, and to do the big thing that we're all basically about? You have called me by name. I am yours. Yes, Lord. Lead me on. We're going to watch a little video. It's quite profound. And then if there's any more questions, we'll grab the kids back in.
All this pain, I wonder if find my way. I wonder if my life could really change at all. All this earth, could all that is lost